A stormy pattern setting up, including the potential of severe weather from large hail to strong winds and potentially even tornadoes as we start tracking that Father's Day weekend forecast. Welcome in, everybody. Great to see you on this Thursday. And knocking on the doorstep of the weekend. And I think obviously a pretty big holiday weekend for many. Father's Day coming up this Sunday. And some of us could be dodging some showers and storms, others dodging more intense storms. And whether that gets here by Father's Day or not doesn't really matter because next week, either way, looks active with that potential severe weather. I'll tell you who and where could see that potential for strong to severe storms, including all hazards in today's video. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Great way to stay up to date, again, as we continue tracking this pattern. And it's June, folks, so it's going to just kind of start to feel like the dog days of summer, even though it is very early on during summer. We're going to get into that pattern for some folks. Other folks, again, kind of on the edge of that. And if you're on the edge of it, though, you're likely to deal with some pretty strong storms. So let's go ahead and dive on into things and start talking weather. Now, we'll start with satellite loop like we normally do. Our water vapor loop today doing a pretty good job of showing where the active weather is. We've been talking the past couple videos about this pesky little upper level low over Texas, and it's not hard to find. There's the heart of it, just bringing a lot of moisture up out of the Gulf on this Thursday. And trust me, they're feeling it out there in East Texas. We talked about that flooding potential yesterday. Unfortunately, we have had some water rescues go on. We've had some flooding obviously associated with that, and that could continue into today as well, as today's kind of the last day that this upper level piece of energy is parked over the same area. Then it's going to slowly but definitely start to kind of kick east here, and that unfortunately could bring active weather for many of us, again, for that holiday weekend. Now to the north, you can see some active weather beginning as well. This is the start of that ring of fire pattern that we've been telling you about. Really going to start to get kick-started this weekend and last all the way through this coming week, although as it normally does, it's going to shift and bend and all those sorts of things as it evolves here over the next 7 to 10 days. So we'll have to kind of iron those details out in the forecast. Now, as for radar imagery, it's showing up pretty well. Again, we've got heavy rain down here into East Texas and even now up into Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma and western Louisiana getting in on that heavy rain action. Again, Texas is not the only state feeling it, but that is a sign at least that it is starting to slowly move. But check out this heavy rain. I mean, Houston getting absolutely soaked on this Thursday, really up and down much of the Texas Gulf coastline, seeing that heavy rain. And now that heavy rain even spreading up into Texarkana, Little Rock, and even down there into southeastern Oklahoma. Again, the general track of this guy is going to kind of be something like this out towards the mid-Atlantic by the time we get to early next week. So again, today's Thursday. If it's only going to hit the mid-Atlantic by Sunday or Monday, you get the idea it's moving pretty slowly. Now, to the north, also seeing showers and storms up here into Montana, the Dakotas, Minnesota. That's the start of that ring of fire pattern we've been telling you about. And again, it's knocking on the doorstep here and will really become a much bigger storyline here coming up pretty soon. All right, folks, so let's switch on over now, take a look at some upper level maps, and then go from there. All right, well, speaking on that active pattern, we can see it very well in our upper level vorticity maps. This is a great tool to use, again, really all times of the year, but it's just as useful in June when we're looking for these little shortwave pieces of energy and some bigger pieces of energy as well out there that's really throwing kind of a wrench in the forecast. So you can see it well. Here's that little piece. I say little piece. It's a much bigger piece of energy, really, over the middle and southern part of the United States here. That's what's bringing all that active weather to Texas. That combined with some of the flow it as well as high pressure is bringing. So we've got high pressure off the southeast coastline. That's pumping moisture up out of the Gulf. And at the same time, we're getting lift over that same region due to that piece of energy. And you get lift over moisture in the month of June. Yeah, that's a recipe for very heavy rainfall. That's exactly what we're seeing. And again, what has led to some of that flooding risk. Now to the north, you could see a lot of strong flow beginning to develop here over the northern tier of the country. That's going to up our wind shear values. And eventually, after this guy kind of gets kicked on out of here, this high pressure off the southeast coastline is really going to pump that Gulf moisture quite far north into the plains. And that strong upper level flow is going to then begin to intersect with that southerly flow at the surface. And guess what? That's when severe weather's really going to crank up here, I think, by the time we get into this coming week for many folks into the northern plains. Let's time out the next day or so for you on this map. Again, this is today, Thursday. By the time we get into Friday afternoon, this is when Father's Day weekend is kind of beginning. People are getting off of work. We're starting that holiday weekend. And yeah, we've got that pesky piece of energy still hanging around over the Ozarks. And that's going to begin to increase afternoon shower and storm activity for much of the southeast. and I really do mean a lot of the southeast. If you're anywhere in this kind of circle here, yeah, you're going to probably have a pretty on and off rainy, thundery kind of weekend here as we continue to track this system. Meanwhile, by the time we get to Saturday afternoon, that same storm, again, just barely moving kind of eastbound here. Now, as that's happening, though, here comes that big old ridge, that big ring of kind of fire that we've been talking about, and it's going to start to really bring flow around it, and that's going to be something that we absolutely need to watch into the weekend. And then you can see all these little pieces of energy around it. That'll be the big storyline that we need to discuss. Before we do that, though, let's dive into the SPC outlooks and let's talk about some flooding outlooks for the next couple of days, and then start to really dive into that model analysis. All right, severe weather outlook today. Yeah, you can see all these little areas we're watching, and that tells me that generally speaking, today is going to just be a classic afternoon pop-up thunderstorm day. Again, from the Carolinas, even up here into kind of the Scranton area, Williamsport, Bloomsburg, Allentown, over to New York City. Also in their own little marginal risk, we've got an area down associated with that upper level piece of energy from the Texas Gulf Coast all the way up the Mississippi Delta of Arkansas, Mississippi and Tennessee there, and then through Louisiana, and a bigger area back out here into the plains. Now, the good news, the tornado outlook for today, quite small, just a 2% area. That's going to be down here for that Delta region into the Gulf States region of Texas, up through, again, the Memphis area. So slight chance of a tornado there today. Everywhere else, though, that you see shaded in, mainly going to be strong straight line winds, especially that Carolina area and that New York, Philadelphia, kind of Scranton area, and then out into the plains, more of a hail and wind threat there, where we do have this very skinny slight risk here through about some of the least populated areas of Nebraska, and then up into kind of more populated areas there of South Dakota along the US 90 corridor. So that's what we're watching for today. As for tomorrow, I'm going to zoom out. Notice everything in the east, we don't even have a marginal risk. Now, I'll caution you though, although you don't see any marginal risks here east of the Mississippi or slight risk or anything like that, we could still see strong damaging winds. It's very common this time of the year. Oftentimes the SPC doesn't put out outlooks for it just because I don't know why. Actually, I couldn't tell you why, but just be prepared. Either way, afternoon storms out here tomorrow, and we'll show you this on future radar here in a second, could still become strong to severe. So just watch out for that. Just because you're not in a threat area, you are still in that light green, which indicates thunderstorms are possible. And I think some of those could still try to run for at least a special weather statement criteria, maybe even a couple severe storms. Bigger threat tomorrow, though. Again, we got classic northwest flow here up the spine of the high plains from Billings and Great Falls all the way down to Amarillo and Lubbock. Going to be another day where if we take a look at the tornado threat tomorrow, not super high, but notice we got this tiny little area. It looks like a little bit of a boundary going to set up here from kind of the Sterling area of Colorado up through Kimball, Grant, and then it looks like Alliance in Nebraska, that general area, right along the US 76-80 interchange where those kind of meet. And then, within about a 100-mile radius of that, could see a brief tornado tomorrow. So watching out for that. But large hail and wind, again, going to be the bigger threats here as we get some classic northwest flow. It's generally harder for that to produce tornadoes. But again, you get a little bit of extra spin down there in Nebraska and Colorado. We'll watch that for the potential of a couple tornadoes tomorrow, Friday, June 13th. Wow, Friday the 13th tomorrow. I just connected those dots. There you go. So maybe that does mean there will be a tornado, right? I don't know. But on a more serious note, though, severe weather is one thing to talk about, but flooding, another one. Again, folks, we've seen just a torrential amount of rain here into the Houston area. I showed you this morning, or I say this morning, again this afternoon now, where we have some of that rain falling into this area. Yeah, we've seen a lot of it. So Houston suburbs, all the way back down towards Victoria, Galveston, even over towards the San Antonio area. Could continue to see flash flooding potential today into tonight, and not just those areas. Again, you see that slight risk spreading all the way up to Shreveport, Pine Bluff, Jonesboro, Little Rock, down here into Fort Smith. And then again, kind of the Choctaw Nation there of Oklahoma could also see some flooding. So watching out for that. And you could even see some other pockets of Carolinas. Some of these storms say that pop up. I'll show you again in a second. Could have torrential downpours, and same things for some areas of the northern plains. All right, let's swing on over now. Let's take a look at some of these mesoscale models. Then after that, we'll talk about some of the longer range models and tell you what's to come here throughout the next week or so. All right, well, with this ring of fire pattern, we're going to take a look at two different parts of the country. So we'll start out west, and I will caution you for my west coast viewers here, anyone really just out towards the Rockies. By the way, if you are watching out there, let me know. Always fun to hear people watching outside of just the eastern U.S., because we are going to talk about your weather here. But I will caution you, the time above my head is in Eastern time. I can't change that, so just, subtract 2 or 3 hours, depending on where you're watching from out here, if you are. Now, let's go ahead and time it out for you this afternoon. Again, you can see some of these showers and storms already developing. This is by this evening. We could see, again, some stronger storms here into eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and then even some storms up into the northern belt here of the Dakotas, out towards Minnesota, and then into Montana as well. Now, that's today. Tomorrow going to be the bigger severe weather day, so we'll get this through tonight. Again, this is kind of pulse convection today, but by tomorrow afternoon, notice, here we go, some stronger storms developing from Wyoming, Montana, all the way back down again into that 2% tornado risk. That's where we need to watch for some of these stronger storms tomorrow. All hazards going to be on the table. So again, watching out for that here. You can see those kind of storms starting a little more isolated and then eventually congealing together during the afternoon and evening and becoming a little bit more mesoscale convective system-like or complex-like here during the overnight hours of your Friday, and this is as far out as it goes into Saturday morning. But again, you can see that belt of strong to severe storm potential that way as we kind of go through the next couple of days. Now let's move this eastbound and start talking about our friends here on the eastern side of the country, which again, I know many of you are watching from. So here's this afternoon. This is again Thursday today. And you can see some of these storms beginning to develop out here into Kansas, Oklahoma, and down again towards the Gulf Coast where we have that upper level piece of energy, again, being quite pesky here with the forecast. Now, we'll time it out for you. That's today. This evening, all of that continues. And also note these afternoon showers and storms beginning to develop by the time we get into again, the evening hours. Normal popcorn development time here for thunderstorms. This time of the year, you can see those really beginning to develop here for your Thursday evening. Now, let's keep on going into the overnight. Rain is going to be a little bit more persistent tonight out here towards the Ozarks, Mississippi, Western Tennessee. Again, we have upper level energy, so it's not just being driven off of afternoon heating. We've got more kinematic and dynamic things in play, keeping the rain going here, even into the overnight out that way. Everywhere else, though, in the east, more pulse-like convection. Same thing up into the northern plains in terms of some of those dynamic things kind of driving the rain there. So it could last into the overnight here into Minnesota, the Dakotas, portions of Wisconsin, and even Michigan. Now here we go, Friday afternoon, another day of pop-up storms. Again, notice how that line of the pop-up storms kind of pull northward as this piece of energy swings through. Again, just bringing a big pocket here of lift and instability. And that combination is obviously going to lead to these afternoon storms. Now, again, it's not going to be a washout. Not everyone's going to see the storms, but if you do, they could be heavy in terms of rainfall. We could have some lightning, maybe even some small hail and gusty winds. That we'll need to watch out for really through the coming days up into that region of the country. Now, that's going to be your Friday afternoon here, pictured next to me. Overnight Friday, again, dies down a little bit in the southeast, but still upper level dynamics in play here, keeping the rain going even into the overnight. Looks like some beautiful sleeping weather, if you ask me, up here into West Virginia, Northern Virginia, northbound through New England. Could be a bit of a rainy Friday overnight into your Saturday. And then here we go into Saturday morning as far out as the model goes. And it's going to be more of the same that day. More consistent rain in the northeast, pop-up convection in the southeast. And again, just overall, a pretty unsettled pattern looking to take a hold. All right, let's swing on over now. Let's talk about the rest of the weekend and into next week and what that could mean for your forecast. All right, so talking on that upper level pattern a little bit more, again, as we go through the coming week, it's really going to be a lot of the same, folks. This is by Saturday afternoon. Here's the big ridge, and guess what's associated with it? That big old ring. Now, that obviously means the corridor of storminess is going to kind of be right into this region that I have circled on the map here. They're going to start out here towards the Rockies and then kind of ride on through the Midwestern and northern portions of the country. This could even extend into places here into the east. It'll just depend on how the jet stream works. But again, the way this generally is being driven is it's a corridor. It's like a train track. So, all the storms are going to kind of follow these dips in the jet stream. And as we go throughout the week ahead, you'll notice those dips kind of move where they're at. But generally speaking, the pattern holds. This gets us all the way out to next week, the middle of next week. And you can notice, see how some of these pieces of energy even dive into the eastern U.S. These could be more, I won't say prolific. That makes it sound like it's a big deal, but higher impact weather makers, we'll say. How about that? By next week, you can see these dips in the jet, again, could produce a little bit more lift. One there's one up here. So we'll watch those. We'll see how they evolve on the models, but definitely showing up on some of our latest guidance here. And you can just see, though, we're in the heart of summer, folks. If you live let's say if you live south of this line here, you're just in the brutal dog days already. I know it's an early start. Go out to the lake though, and if you have a pool, enjoy it. Obviously, again, the afternoon storms will be something we watch for, but you're trapped under that ridge for a while until a hurricane or something comes and moves it out of the way. All right, now what else is this going to mean? Well, again, we're going to watch these pieces of energy that rotate around this upper level ridge. It's kind of the big story this time of the year, and we'll time it out for you. Again, here's that pesky piece we've been talking about. This is by Saturday morning of this week, again, the day before Father's Day, and then notice by Sunday, Father's Day itself, it's parked right over the Appalachia chain of the Virginias and Carolinas. And unfortunately, that's going to probably mean a pretty rainy Father's Day here into the Mid-Atlantic. Now, I don't expect to wash out for everybody, but we are going to be dodging some pretty scattered, I would say, maybe even widespread afternoon thunderstorms. Could be more of a widespread rain event to the north. We'll watch it. We'll see how the models handle it. Again, I'll show you the latest European run here in just a second. Now, as we keep it ahead, though, again, we're watching these little pieces of energy. So I'll just circle some of them. Here's a piece. Here's a piece of energy, back here's a piece, watching how they rotate around that ridge. And again, anywhere that those go will have higher end chances for storms, especially if it's near you or right in front of you in the flow at least, or we'll say upstream in the flow here in the afternoon hours. If it happens then obviously you're gonna have more instability to work with. And that's the theme, folks. Now, again, a little bigger piece of energy showing up here in the European about a week from now. We'll watch it. We'll see what that does. But that's going to kind of be the storyline there. All right, let's swing on over now, take a look at severe weather ingredients. Where is that going to line up? And give you that kind of forecast here for the medium to long range. All right, using ensemble members is a great tool for really any sort of forecasting, but even for severe weather. Obviously, my longtime viewers will know I love the ensembles during the winter season and hurricane season as well. That's probably when they're most useful, but even for severe weather, it does a good job at showing some of the ingredients, including wind shear. Now, here's our bulk wind shear. This is wind shear from the surface where we are to about halfway up in the atmosphere. And you'll kind of notice where it hangs out. It's where the brighter colors are on your map. And I'm going to just kind of speed through this, and you'll notice it's really over the same areas. It does not leave the northern tier of the country. And again, that's because that's where we have some of the strongest winds aloft, where that very hot, humid air of the Gulf that is trying to surge northward is meeting some of the cooler air up into Canada, where those two clash. That's where the jet becomes the strongest. And that's where you end up getting some of the strongest wind shear. So we'll kind of just circle in general right on this frame. This is where the strongest wind shear is. All right, I'm going to leave that on the screen here. Now let's take a look at instability, CAPE, thunderstorm fuel, and notice what happens as we move ahead into time. We've got a lot down south, but notice how it starts to overlap with some of that wind shear here up into the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming. Now, we still got instability down south, but we're lacking wind shear. So that means down south, you could still get strong storms. You're just not going to get your all hazards with tornadoes and things like that out of this sort of pattern. It's going to be more of a pulse afternoon convection, which again can still produce heavy rain, lightning, and some strong winds, definitely for sure. I've seen it before. In fact, we had one the other day in Charlotte, nice little downburst that worked through the northern suburbs. But again, it's where the ingredients are overlapping though. And notice that's happening just here in the extreme northern tier of the country for the foreseeable future. I mean, folks, this gets us 10 plus days out from now. This looks to be a pattern that holds on for a good amount of time for a lot of folks. And you put all that together and you ask the model to kind of simulate, well, then where is the highest chance of severe weather? And guess where it's going to say? Yeah, it's going to be in the northern tier. See how we kind of just keep on working through, and it's days of severe weather chances here into the northern section of the country, and hangs out there for, I mean, again, potentially 10 plus days, at least 7, I'd say, probably at least 7 to 10, maybe longer than that with this sort of pattern here showing up in the models. All right, swing on over now, take a look at the final 2 maps, and then let you go and start enjoying the rest of your Thursday. All right, here's the latest European model, and again, we'll time out some of these storm complexes for you. We'll pick up where we left off on Saturday morning. Again, already unsettled here Saturday morning to start your Father's Day weekend here east of the Mississippi and kind of south of the Great Lakes. It's where we're going to have the highest chance of rainfall. And notice by the time we get to Saturday afternoon, yeah, we've got some pretty widespread showers and thunderstorms developing here from the Ohio Valley down to the Gulf states and even up into the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to need to watch out for that, if you have afternoon outdoor plans here for your Saturday, that could definitely become slightly impacted potentially by the time we get into the weekend. That's Saturday, and then by the time we hit Sunday, Father's Day itself, yeah, folks, that's pretty widespread rain, specifically in the Virginias, Carolinas, Kentucky, Tennessee, that area looks to be pretty rainy for Father's Day. So we'll watch it and we'll hope to get some sunshine in. Don't expect a washout, but afternoon convection looks to be pretty widespread. Now, as that's happening, notice these clusters of storms back up to the north. These are going to have higher end severe weather potential up that way to see here on your Sunday. And then as we go through the week ahead, notice how it's just complex of storm after complex of storm as every little piece of upper level energy rides over that moist, unstable air mass back out into the northern plains. You can see by Tuesday, again, just big complexes of storms out there. And while that's happening, still dealing with afternoon thunderstorms in the southeast. Here's next Wednesday, for example. Again, maybe even some northwest flow thunderstorm action here into the mid-Atlantic and the Ohio Valley. We'll watch it, but definitely the highest severe weather potential will be up north, but south of there, still going to see rain and afternoon thunderstorm chances. Now, let's talk about total rainfall here. This is the final thing we'll talk about. This is now through this coming Monday. So this gets us through Father's Day weekend. Highest rainfall is going to be out here into Arkansas, southeast Texas, Louisiana, with that upper level piece of energy that's moving through now. But notice, we could still see upwards of an inch of rain in some places here into the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, even into the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys this weekend. Get a lot of afternoon thunderstorms. So I'll caution you. Your friend down the road 10, 20 miles could get 2-3 inches of rain and you could get nothing. So that kind of averages out to a map like this. It's just the normal summertime stuff. If you've been alive for any time in this part of the country, you know that's just how it goes. And obviously, we'll all hope everyone can kind of share the rain a little bit and also not get a washout at the same time. But unfortunately, none of us can control that. So it just is what it is. And then also some heavier rain chances up here again in that northern belt where we have some stormy activity. That's now through, again, Monday. So move it all the way out into time through next week. This gets us to the into this coming work week. And notice rain chances really bump up for just about everyone here east of the Rockies, whether that be this severe weather in the north or just more of the pulse convection into the southeast. Either way, looks pretty rainy. Alrighty, folks. Well, that's all I got for you on this Thursday. Again, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and what's the other thing? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Sorry, I don't remember what the order was there of my little sales pitch. I guess I'm not the best salesman. With that said, though, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.